And this first question comes from the 11th Congressional District voter. If elected, re-elected in your case, the 115th House of Representatives, what would be the first piece of legislation that you will personally introduce, and how will it affect the citizens of the district?
Well, we've introduced a number of pieces of legislation over the last 18 months. We've been fortunate enough to have 3 of those pass the House. We're hopeful that our 4th one will pass here in the coming weeks, which really deals with accountability. But for me, one of the ones that is still out there that we've been working on in a real bipartisan way is one that was introduced by people here in the district. Honestly, over in Henderson County, we found that the Habitat for Humanity was sucked up in the Dodd-Frank regulations. And what we found was here they were providing no interest loans to provide housing, and yet they were still having to comply with Dodd-Frank, with all the disclosures, with all the appraisal requirements. So I got together, we introduced a piece of legislation, got together with G.K. Butterfield, who is a Democrat from this state, and we went to work with it. And I'm proud to say that most of it has been changed administratively. We still have a little bit to do, and so I'm hopeful that we move that through, because the impact of that really is about homes being built for those that are really in need. The cost for compliance just for one affiliate in Henderson County was $5,000 a month. And so when you extrapolate that over all the affiliates that we have nationwide, we're talking about $95 million. That's $95 million worth of houses that couldn't be built that were just in compliance. So that would be a priority for us that we would continue with if we elected.
Tom?
Yes, it's hard for me to say just one, so I'll give you 3. The first thing I will do is to introduce a bill to close these offshore tax loopholes. I am sick of them. These mega-rich corporations are moving overseas and avoiding paying hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes every year. This nonsense has to stop, and it's time for Congress to act on it. Now, I know that as long as Mark and his group are in charge of the House of Representatives, I can't get it out of the House. I don't care who is in the House, I will introduce it. The second, and it's very simple. People say, well, you can't, the tax structure is so complicated. Oh no, it's very simple. You pass a law that says, notwithstanding any other provisions of the tax code, that the corporations must pay taxes on the basis of where they make the money, and where they make the profit, and not on the basis where they call their home office. I don't care where that is. It can be in the Cayman Islands, it can be in Wales or Switzerland, wherever they make the money, that's where they pay the taxes. And so that's the first thing. The second thing I intend to introduce is a form of an immigration reform bill. This nonsense of thinking that 15 million undocumented workers are going to voluntarily deport themselves back to Central America after they risk life and limb to come here is absolute nonsense. And I intend to introduce a bill to rectify that, and I'll hopefully have a chance to explain more about it later. And the third thing I want to do is, as Mark tried to shut down the government, I will introduce a bill to cut off the funds for these never-ending Mideast wars. I am not opposed to humanitarian efforts. I will support a demilitarization of Gaza, but those bills need quarantine.
All right.
Sorry, no.
Mark, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
You know, really, in terms of closing the corporate loopholes, that's part of our jobs plan that we started with some time ago. And so looking at closing those corporate loopholes, I think is something that we can all support. You know, when we look at that, picking winners and losers is not something that the government should do. And whether that is any corporation, we're seeing this inversion that happens right now with corporations that are putting their headquarters somewhere else. The trouble with that, we see the Burger Kings and it upsets us. But what we don't see are all the foreign corporations that won't invest here because of our high corporate tax. And that's something that we need to address as well, just for American jobs.
And Tom, you have 1 more minute.
Yes, Mark's had 2 years to do that. I haven't had any time. If I get up there, I will do something within the first few months on this. As far as closing it, as far as the tax rate being too high, these deadbeats would not pay taxes if it were $5. They're not going to pay them. As long as they can move offshore and avoid taxes, they will do so. They've shown that. And they put out these silly press releases that say another patriotic corporation has moved offshore. Absolute balderdash. They are not patriotic. There's not 1 ounce of patriotism in them, and needless to say, they're not funding my campaign.